Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. As always, thank you for joining me. Now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you've probably noticed something. We talk about Ukraine a lot. But, here's the thing. This isn't just another regional war, this is the war that defines our time, the largest, bloodiest conflict in Europe since World War II, and it's happening right across the Black Sea, practically in our neighborhood. This war matters not only to Europe, but to the entire world, to Canada, to the US, and to anyone who cares about where this planet is heading. Because let's face it, what's happening in Ukraine is not just a local clash between two neighboring states. It's a global confrontation in disguise, a war that engulfed the world. Just days ago, Vladimir Putin said something striking. We are not fighting Ukraine, we are fighting the entire NATO bloc. And he's not wrong. On one side, you have the entire Western Alliance, the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, the European Union, Japan, South Korea, all funneling weapons, money, and intelligence to Kyiv. On the other side, you have Russia, backed by Belarus, Iran, and yes, even North Korea. According to reports, North Korea has sent up to 15,000 Don's soldiers to assist Russia. Thousands of them have already been killed or wounded. Kim Jong-un openly says, "We will stand with Russia as long as it takes." And of course, China quietly supports Moscow from the sidelines, diplomatically, economically, and strategically. So, what are we witnessing? A battlefield that's not just about Ukraine's borders, it's a test run for a much larger global confrontation, a live rehearsal for World War III. The West's dangerous game. Almost every Western power is now militarily involved in some way. Canada and the US have been training Ukrainian soldiers, Germany and Britain have sent tanks, the Netherlands and Norway are sending F-16s, France and Poland are supplying missiles and artillery. Everyone keeps saying the same thing. Our only enemy is Russia. Now, whether you think Russia is right or wrong, one thing is clear. The West has pushed Moscow into a corner, and it's still pushing. This war has been raging for almost 4 years now. And instead of cooling down, it's spreading, politically, digitally, and militarily. Missiles are flying, drones are buzzing, and every country is rearming. Former President Donald Trump is telling Europe to buy more American weapons, and Europe is doing exactly that. NATO is preparing for a direct conflict, whether it admits it or not. But here's the truth. When both sides build mountains of weapons and keep talking about using them, eventually, someone will pull the trigger. Europe's 0 hour. Many analysts say we're now entering what they call Phase 0, the point of no return. The next move could spark an all-out European war. Russia, according to Western intelligence, is preparing the psychological and information groundwork for a bigger confrontation. It's using drones, cyber attacks, sabotage operations, and unmarked military units across Europe. The same tactics it used in Crimea in 2014. In fact, over 50% of Europeans believe that a major war could erupt within the next 5 years, and if you look closely, it's not paranoia, the signs are everywhere. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, the tiny Baltic republics, are on high alert. Many experts believe that if Russia decides to expand this war, it will start there. Why? Because these countries are small, exposed, and right on Russia's doorstep. Just last week, Estonia partially closed sections of its border with Russia. Why? Because armed men in unmarked uniforms, no flags, no insignias, were seen moving in formation near the border. Estonian officials say these weren't border guards, these were organized military units acting under secret orders. And doesn't that sound familiar? Because that's exactly how Crimea was taken in 2014, little green men with no insignia, who turned out to be Russian special forces. The fear, now, is that Russia could use the same trick again, ignite chaos or a staged rebellion in the Baltics, then claim it's protecting Russian-speaking minorities. The Baltics are tiny. Estonia's population is half the size of the city of Toronto. If war broke out, these nations could be overrun in hours. But NATO isn't sitting idle. There are now more than 10,000 NATO troops stationed across the Baltics. In Estonia alone, the UK has around 1,000 soldiers stationed just 300 kilometers from Russia's border. France, Belgium, Denmark, Iceland, and the United States have all deployed forces as well. Germany has established its first permanent overseas base since World War II, in Lithuania. From Finland in the north to Bulgaria in the south, NATO has built what many are calling a military wall across Russia's western border. Over 30,000 troops are now on constant readiness, but the closer this wall gets to Russia, the more likely it becomes that someone will make a mistake that ignites something uncontrollable. Sabotage, drones, and cyber attacks. Meanwhile, there's an invisible war happening across Europe. In Denmark, mysterious drones have been spotted over airbases and oil terminals, forcing temporary shutdowns. In Norway and Poland, similar incidents have been reported. Even Munich Airport in Germany had to halt flights after unexplained drone activity. Danish intelligence now says the country faces an extremely high risk of Russian sabotage, and it's not just physical incursions. Russia has also unleashed waves of cyber attacks across Europe. Last week, airports in Brussels, Berlin, and Madrid were crippled. Thousands of passengers had to be checked in manually, using pen and paper. The culprit? Still unknown. But everyone knows who they suspect. If Russia can hack European systems in peacetime, imagine what it could do in wartime. Russian and NATO aircraft now routinely come face-to-face in the skies. Last week, 3 Russian MiG-31 jets, armed with hypersonic missiles, entered Estonian airspace for nearly 12 minutes before being forced out by NATO F-35s. In Poland, 19 separate airspace violations were reported in just 2 weeks. Tensions are sky-high. Trump recently said, "Next time, NATO shouldn't hesitate to shoot down Russian jets." European leaders echoed the same warning. Poland's foreign minister even declared they will shoot next time. And then came a chilling response. Russia's ambassador to France said, "Yes, NATO planes have violated our airspace many times, but we haven't shot them down yet." The message was clear. If NATO fires once, Russia will fire back, and the consequences will be catastrophic. Meanwhile, something unusual is happening in Washington. Trump, once accused of being soft on Russia, is now quietly tightening the screws. Since July, U.S. intelligence has been helping Ukraine more directly, providing targeting data that's allowed Ukrainian drones to strike deep into Russia's oil infrastructure. Of Russia's 38 refineries, at least 16 have been hit, some multiple times. This has crippled about 20% of Russia's refining capacity and begun to strain its war economy. Russian citizens are starting to feel the pressure: fuel shortages, inflation, and frustration. The U.S. strategy seems clear: make the war too painful for Moscow to sustain, but it's also dangerous, because when you back a nuclear power into a corner, you don't know what it might do next. The Tomahawk question. Now comes the game-changing move. Reports say Washington is considering sending long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine. These missiles can reach targets up to 2,500 kilometers away, deep inside Russian territory. If Ukraine starts launching these, Russia could see it as a direct U.S. attack. Even Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov admitted, "If missiles come toward us, we won't know whether they carry nuclear warheads. How do you expect us to respond?" That's the nightmare scenario. Miscalculation. A single misunderstanding could trigger a chain reaction that no one can stop. Because once this kind of escalation starts, you can't just press pause. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. A war on the horizon. Russia says it's ready. NATO says it's ready. Both sides are convinced the other will blink first. But history tells us, when everyone thinks war won't happen, that's exactly when it does. If a wider war breaks out, the first targets would likely be Kaliningrad, St. Petersburg, or Crimea. If Russia retaliates, it could strike the Baltics or even the UK. Europe hasn't been this militarized since 1945, and yet people scroll their phones, watch the headlines, and carry on as if it's all just noise. But behind that noise, weapons are piling up, missiles are being fueled, fighter jets are on standby, and somewhere out there, someone's finger is hovering over the button. So, the question remains, are we standing at the dawn of a new world war, or are we watching the final moves before peace? Time will tell, but history rarely forgives those who ignore its warnings. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you found this video informative, please give it a like, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more in-depth geopolitical analysis from a Canadian perspective. Stay safe, stay aware, and as always, stay in peace.